Hey, what's up? Welcome back. In this episode, we're going to solve day 4 of the Advent of Code for 2021. It is essentially building a bingo game where we get a list of the numbers that are called in order, and then we get a series of different boards, and we have to go through and mark off the boards as we go. So we'll jump into our code. I've already got sort of some of the rspec stuff set up. So rspec.describe, and we're going to have a board class, and it is going to just tell us whether or not we have bingo on the board. So I guess we want to describe the bingo method, and we can make that end in a question mark because it'll tell us true or false whether or not the board has bingo. So it return or like is false for an empty board. And we'll just create a new board. B is board.new. And we want to pass, every board is going to be 5 by 5. So I think we're just going to do like, yeah, how do we want to do this? Like nil, I guess array.new 5. And then every time we want to create a new array of 5 nils. And that is what we want to pass into board.new. So let's see. So that should give us like our blank board. Expect B to, or like not to be bingo. And we can run it. And it's going to say we don't have a board class. So uninitialized constant board. Oh, and also when you're using rspec.describe here for a class name, there was a comment from Sinon that said, instead of writing the class name every time, you can use described class, which rspec sets for us to prevent typos. So here, instead of board, I guess I can use described class.new, which is a little funky because we're calling .new on this thing. There's also like a concept of a subject or let or whatever. So we'll play around with described class and just see how that works for us. So uninitialized constant board. So we want to go back over to our bingo here and say class board. And I guess, yeah, let's split like that. And then we can run our tests again. Wrong number of arguments, 1 given, 0 expected, definite. And we want to take in our grid or something. At grid is grid. And we can have a reader for our grid. It's like, whatever, maybe we want to just keep that internal, maybe we don't, but whatever. And then now it's telling us, what is the error here? Expected not to be bingo. Expected blah, blah, blah to respond to bingo. So it doesn't have the bingo method yet. So we need to add def bingo. We're just changing the file enough to get a different output. And our test is actually passing now. So we need to write a new test. It is true for a bingoed board. So we can create another board here. And in this case, what we want to do is, instead of passing in this array, or I guess we want to say like grid is equal to array dot grid is equal to this thing. So yeah, so I've been using Vim for a long time, or like since 2005, 16 years or so, on and off. So I used VI for a bit, then I used Visual Studio for a while. So let's mark off grid at 0, I, and we'll do this for 5 times. 5 times, we're going to say I, and grid at I equals X. And that should make it come off as bingo, to be bingo. Okay, so we've got inside of our board, now we have like a bunch of X's. So we want to check and see if we have X's. So if a board is bingo, the either one of the rows will all be marked off as X, or one of the columns will all be marked off as X. So one thing we can do here is actually, we could call this rows, grid, and then we could have a new method, columns, which is at rows.transpose, which should work. And then, okay, so for bingo, we want to see at rows.any, are there any rows where where the entire row is like where all of the cells, I guess we want to say, okay, so row where all of the elements in the row cell, where the cell is equal to X. I think that's right. Or if any of the columns are bingo. So let's see. All right, so we've got a passing test. So let's like comment out columns, and it still passes. So this is going to be for a bingo board with a row. And then we also want one that works for a column. So it's true for a bingo board with a column. And here what we can do is we can just swap our I for that. And that should actually fail right now. Yeah, because it needs this. And cool. So now we have all 3 tests passing. So we've got the concept of bingo, or like a board can be bingo, meaning like a board can have 5 in a row, either a row or a column. All right, let's do the next step here, which is to, we want to take in some list of numbers and some like list of boards, and then we want to like start marking the numbers on that board. I guess we also need some way to like mark a number, right? So like describe, mark, do, end. And this is just convention, putting the octothorpe # hashtag thingy at the beginning of the name of a method. So marks a number. Okay, so then if we have, I don't know, let's say that we create this grid, and then at grid at 0, 0 is equal to 5. And then if we say, we pass in the grid, and if we see b.mark 5, we would expect that b.rows at 0, 0 to equal x. So we wanted to like mark off, like by calling mark 5, we wanted to find the 5 and replace it with an x. So let's see if this works. No define method mark, def mark. Okay, expected that, got that. So now we want to say something like rows.each with index do row x, and then row.each with index do column y. And then we say like if the column, or this is kind of like the cell, if the cell equals the number that was passed in, then we want to mark at rows at x and y, and we want to set that equal to x. I think that should work. Let's see. All right, cool. So all of our tests are still passing. We've got the ability to mark a board, and yeah, I think that looks pretty good. Okay, so now we want to start working on the actual bingo class. So rspec.describe bingo, do end, and we want to say something like it plays the numbers or something, or like plays a number. I don't know. I'm not sure what this is going to look like. So bingo is bingo.new, and we want to pass in, I guess like our input is going to be a bunch of numbers and a bunch of boards or something. So I don't know if we want to like pass in an actual board, or if we want to pass in like just like an array of boards, and then an array of, yeah, I think we need an array of boards and we need an array of numbers. So, oh, right. And then here we got described class instead of that. And then here, what we want is like, I guess we kind of want to create board is board.new. We can't use described class for this part because board is not the described class. Bingo is the described class. So here we're creating a new board. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so we want to create a new instance of Bingo, passing in the first board. And really, we're going to pass a list of boards in, and then we want to pass in some list of numbers that's going to get executed. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 maybe. And then we want to expect bingo.winning board to equal board. I don't know, like we haven't even defined the bingo class yet. So let's do that. Class bingo. All right, what does that look like? Wrong number of arguments. So it's going to take in boards and numbers. Boards is equal to boards. Numbers is equal to numbers. And then we need a winning board method. And we also need, I guess maybe we need a method like play, bingo.play, which actually like executes each of the numbers. So like numbers.each do n. And then boards.each do board. And for each number, we want to mark the board. Board.mark n. And then if board.bingo, then we want to set winning board is equal to board and return or something. And then here we'll just return at winning board. I guess, I don't know. Boards, numbers. All right, we wrote a lot of code and we didn't really write too many tests for this play method, but we're sort of expecting that it's going to mark stuff off. Okay, so expected board got nil. Okay, so if board.bingo, winning board is board and return. Winning, did I spell that wrong? Winning board. Winning board. Huh. All right, so then we're gonna, yeah, let's drop in a by bug. And we will put it here. Now, when you're trying to figure out like where to actually drop in the by bug, you can set breakpoints inside of blocks, but it's kind of tricky and you don't want to like step into the each method. And so I usually try to like put the by bug call inside of the block. So we have board. It looks like that. N is, whoops, puts N is 1. So now we should see board, and that should be marked off with an X in the 1 position, and it is. Board.bingo should be false, and it is. So we continue, board. Okay, so we're about to mark off 5. So now we say next, board.bingo should be true, and it is. And then we should set winning board to board. And then return at winning board is board. And then we return bingo.winning board is that board and board. Okay, wait, what? Okay, so that totally worked. Why didn't that work the first time? All right, so yeah, it's totally working. I don't know why that test failed. Maybe it just didn't save or something. All right, so we've got the concept of a winning board. Now, if we go back to the exercise here, it wants us to report it by summing up the unmarked numbers and multiply that by the number that was just called. So I guess we want to say like last call or something like last number is n. That way we have the last number. And here we can just say def like, I don't know, score or something. I don't know. And then we want to have some expectation down here. So like it works for Well, okay. So, which board won? This board won. And yeah, well, let's just kind of like keep it well, okay, yeah. So, ooh, this is fun. This is fun. So, we want to know the sum of the numbers between 6 and 25. And I think that's going to be so if you sum all the numbers from 0 to n, the value is n times n plus 1 divided by 2. N times n plus 1, all divided by 2. And so for this case, I think we can take, I think what we want to do is say we expect the score, or bingo.score, to equal something. And that something is going to be the sum of all those numbers times the last number that was called. And I think the last number that was called is 5 times, and then we want to have like 25 times 26 divided by 2, and that whole thing minus, well, what is 5 times 4 times 3? Okay, so 5 times 6 divided by 2 is 15, minus 15. So actually we can just do this. 25 times 26 is 650, divided by 2 is 325. So 325 minus 15. Discrete math for the win. So then that's 310, was it? Times 5 is 115. Okay, that's that's wrong. Okay, so let's do this again. So I think this is supposed to equal 1550. Like, I think that's the key for this board. I don't know. We'll see. So, all right. So the score, I think, is going to be winning. Actually, we'll just return winning board.score. And in fact, let's just call. Yeah, let's just call it on the winning board itself, or we'll define the method on the board itself. And yeah, we'll just delegate down to it. Def score is, the score for the board is going to be just the sum of the remaining numbers. So we can say like at rows.flatten reject if it is an x dot inject plus. So we'll like, okay, so what we're doing here is flatten is saying take that 2D array and make it a 1D array. So squish everything into 1D. That gives you all the elements. Then reject or remove all of the elements that were marked as X. And then we're injecting a plus, meaning like add those up. Okay, so that should be the score, the winning board score times last number. And so that should give us 1,550, and it does. Okay, so I guess that might get us pretty close. So if file is equal to $0, then we want to read in our input. So we're going to add a new example input here. And this is going to be equal to all of this stuff. So this is the example input. We want to compare the example input to our ultimate real input. And I guess, what do we want to do here? How do we want to actually read this in? We want the first line, that's for sure. That's going to be our numbers. And then everything else is going to be the board lines. So I guess we could say like numbers, comma, board lines is equal to file.readlines of argv.first. And numbers is equal to numbers.split on comma.map, or like .chomp .split on comma.map to I p numbers. Let's see if this works. Ruby day 4 bingo.rb day 4 example input. We get back all the numbers. That's great. Okay, and then we want to take these boards and iterate over each of those board lines. So board lines that each do line. If, or like next, if line dot chomp is equal to nothing. Otherwise, we want to collect up. We want to collect up the things into rows. So like rows is equal to an empty array. So we want to say rows dot push line dot split on space and dot map to I. So that should give us a bunch of rows. And then if rows dot length is equal to 5, we're going to create a new board. And the board is going to be board.new rows. And then we're going to set rows equals to empty array. And we will say boards, actually we can just say boards.push. Okay. And then we'll set that back to an empty array. After we're done iterating over all the lines, we can create a new bingo, bingo.new for the boards and the numbers. And then we say bingo.play. And we say bingo puts bingo.score. And 4,512, is that the example answer? 4,512. Cool. So then we get our puzzle input, which is this giant thing here. And we jump in here, input, drop in all of those answers. And then we run this again, but instead of example input, we'll run it on input. And 2,496 was our answer. So that is working. So that's cool. That's the end of part 1 for day 4, Advent of Code, solving a bingo puzzle. Super fun. Part 2. On the other hand, it might be wise to try a different strategy. Let the giant squid win. Okay, so to figure out which board will win last, I guess what we want to do is instead of returning right here, we want to say like if board is bingo and winning board is nil, then set the winning board in the last number, but don't return because we want to play through all of the different numbers to see which winner is the last winner. So we want to say something like, do we need to know the last number too? The last, once it wins, what would its final score be? Okay, so we need to keep track of what is the last board that is going to win bingo. And so what we can do is say like if boards dot reject b dot bingo dot count is equal to 1. Non-winning boards is equal to this. I guess we could also make a method for that. So like losing boards is boards without any that have already won. So we're saying like only give us the boards that have not won. Or I mean, maybe to make this a little clearer, we could do select. Select the ones that are not bingo. And then we can say something like if losing boards.length is equal to 1, then we say at losing board is losing losing boards dot losing boards dot first. And then what we need to do is keep track of what the last number is. Okay, so after we mark the losing board, we have to say something like, if the losing board is not nil, okay, maybe it doesn't really matter where this is at. So if the losing board is not nil and losing board.bingo, then we say at losing number is equal to n. So like, let's say we've exhausted all the boards and we have one losing board left. That losing board is not necessarily bingoed yet. So we have to go through all the numbers. We want to keep track of it as soon as we get to the last one. We know that's the losingest, but we want to keep going through all the numbers and continue marking them off until we find the one that has that. So maybe like def losing score is at losing board dot score times losing number. And maybe we can just say, whoops, losing score. And, uh-oh. Undefined method plus for nil class. Did we, okay, so what do we want? Okay, so once it wins, what would its final score be? So, okay. So what we want to do is we want to see, are we getting into either of these? Also, this losing boards thing, this is going to be super slow, but whatever. And okay, we're running. Actually, you know what? We can do this on our example input and it should be faster. Example input. Okay, so we got to our losing board. Losing boards is one board and it has not been marked off for 20 yet. And so we're setting the losing board. At losing board.bingo, it should be false. It is false. But then we should get to a number. Okay, I guess we only need to set that once. Oh, right, that's probably what happened. We only want to set that if there is, we only want to set this if there's no losing board. So if at losing board is nil and the length is 1, then we want to set that. Otherwise we don't want to, because it will result in something. Okay, undefined method times for nil class. So what is being nil? P at losing, actually, yeah, by bug. By bug. There's also like a new debugger. Losing board dot score. Whoa, the score is nothing because we filled the entire board. Okay. Losing board dot score or 0. At losing number should be 20. Okay. Oh, this needs to be also like a return. After we find the losing number, we should return. Okay, 1924, was that the answer here? 1924, okay, cool. So now we should be able to run it on our own input. And wow, it's slow. Wow, super slow. 25,925, 25,925, that is the answer. Okay, so yeah, the whole crux of the game was in this play method where we iterated over each of the numbers to try to like play each number. And when we played each number, we iterated over each board. And if the board was bingo, we marked it and found like our winning board. Otherwise, we tried to find our losing board and our losing number. Cool. So that wraps day 4 for the Advent of Code 2021. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.